Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're logging in from. It is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of Sustainable Energy for All and ASEAN Center for Energy to the first joint event, Clean Energy Transition Dialogue 2021, Energy Transition Trends in ASEAN+3 and ASEAN. We are extremely pleased to organize the session. My name is Min Hye-jung, Energy Specialist at SEforALL, and I will be your host for the next 2 hours. Thanks for joining us today, where we hope to provide an opportunity for everyone to learn, engage, and be inspired. Some logistics first. Please note that the chat and the Q&A box are available to ask your questions and share your comments. Some panelists might answer directly, but if not, we'll make sure to answer all questions post-event through email. Finally, please note that this event will be recorded and that we'll share all presentations after the event. For those of you who do not know us yet, Sustainable Energy for All, or SEforALL, is an international organization that works in partnership with the United Nations and leaders in governments, private sector, civil society, and philanthropic organizations to accelerate action to help us achieve Sustainable Development Goal 7, or SDG 7, which calls for affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030. ASEAN Center for Energy is an intergovernmental organization within ASEAN structure that represents the 10 ASEAN member states' interest in the energy sector. SEforALL and ASEAN Center for Energy have entered an MOU in April this year to support the objectives of ASEAN Plan of Action on Energy Cooperation Phase 2, starting this year till 2025. This Clean Energy Dialogue is organized under this partnership. Over the next 2 hours, you'll be hearing from global experts from think tanks, practitioners, and academia to get the latest updates on clean energy commitments, with a focus on China, Japan, and South Korea, and its potential impact and solutions adopted in the global South, especially in Southeast Asia, and understand the opportunities for clean energy cooperation between these ASEAN+3 countries and ASEAN. Before we start, we would like to thank all SEforALL funders, especially the IKEA Foundation and the governments of Iceland and Austria. Now, it is my great pleasure to welcome our first eminent guest, Ms. Tracy Crow, Chief of Staff and Senior Director at SEforALL. Tracy has worked for a variety of organizations within the climate and clean energy sectors, including successfully managing the Secretariat for the Clean Energy Ministerial when it was hosted at the US Department of Energy. Now the floor is yours, Tracy.
Thank you very much, Min, and hello, distinguished delegates and participants. Thank you for the opportunity to provide remarks today. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the first Sustainable Energy for All and ASEAN Center for Energy organized Clean Energy Transition Dialogue. Globally, there is an urgency more than ever before to address climate change while closing universal energy access gaps, as they are essential to achieve Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. COVID-19 has changed the world as we know it. The pandemic has further slowed efforts to provide access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030, and hindered the efforts to achieve the Paris Agreement climate targets. Clean energy transition initiatives in Asia are pivotal for global efforts to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 13 on climate action and Sustainable Development Goal 7 on universal energy access. Sustainable energy policies adopted in China, Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asian countries are critical to the global clean energy transition story going forward. As countries rebuild economies from the impact of the pandemic, we should recognize that we do have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to recover better with sustainable energy. With falling technology costs, the ASEAN region can seize this moment to power economic recovery through bold policies and investments in energy efficiency and renewable energy. This investment can create new businesses and jobs, develop a competitive advantage quickly, and sustain it over a generation. 2021 is an important year, as countries will be making new climate and clean energy commitments as part of the UN's high-level dialogue on energy in September and for COP26 in November. Just to highlight that the high-level dialogue is the first time in 40 years the UN General Assembly has called for a summit-level meeting on energy. A key component of the dialogue are energy compacts that will capture ambitious, voluntary, and trackable commitments from countries, companies, and other stakeholders. The compacts are an opportunity to showcase leadership on SDG 7 and energy transitions. We look forward to engaging with ASEAN and ASEAN+3 countries to be bold in their own energy compacts and advance a clean energy transition that leaves no one behind. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the important role the ASEAN Center for Energy, led by Dr. Nuki Agya, is undertaking to promote sustainable energy in the ASEAN region, and also appreciate the efforts to strengthen regional clean energy cooperation between the ASEAN+3 and ASEAN countries. Sustainable Energy for All is honored to partner with ASEAN Center for Energy, and through our recently signed Memorandum of Agreement, we look forward to support Dr. Utama and his team to achieve their clean and sustainable energy objectives for the ASEAN region. I thank all the distinguished speakers and panelists for participating in this important dialogue today and look forward to the valuable insights. And thank all the participants for your interest and engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy, for your excellent speech. You talked about the importance of recover better after the global pandemic, the need for energy transitions, and filling energy access gaps. Also highlighting the high-level dialogue on energy, which will be convened in coming September, and touting the need for energy compacts from ASEAN countries. Our next special guest is Dr. Nuki Agya Utama, Executive Director at ASEAN Center for Energy. Dr. Utama was appointed as the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energy in 2019, reporting directly to the Governing Council consisting of leaders of the senior offices on energy from the ASEAN member states. He has various years of experiences working in private sectors and also international organizations such as UNDP and UNEP. Over to you, Dr. Utama.
Thank you, Hee-jung. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Colleagues from SEforALL, Tracy Crow, the Chief of Staff and Senior Directors, distinguished speakers and participants from ASEAN+3 member states, and also colleagues from international organizations, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant day to all of you. I would like to express my appreciation and convey my gratitude to SEforALL for the great cooperation and partnership with ASEAN Center for Energy in organizing this exciting dialogue on clean energy transition. This remarkable event is the first activity to kick off the cooperation framework of ACE and SEforALL in supporting ASEAN sustainable clean energy development. I also would like to thanks to all the participants for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us today. It is indeed very timely when we talk about the energy transition, particularly since the urgency to address climate change has been very aggressive. As one of the most contributors of carbon emission, it is very important for energy sector to move forward to cleaner energy system. Under our ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or we call it APAC, Phase 2, 2021-2025, the energy transition agenda has been included in the regional energy priorities. And ASEAN has set ambitious aspirational targets on renewable energy and energy efficiency conservation sectors. In the RE, ASEAN has achieved almost 14% RE share in the total primary energy supply, or TPS, and 26.8% share in total installed power capacity in 2018. And for the new targets under APEC Phase 2, ASEAN is committed to achieve the ASEAN RE target of 35% of the total installed power capacity by 2025, and which will contribute to achieving the aspirational RE target of 23% share in the total primary energy supply in the same year. Meanwhile, in the energy efficiency and conservation area, the 21% of energy intensity reduction has been achieved in the region in 2018. It is based on the 2005 level. Noting that ASEAN is projected to achieve 24.9% energy intensity reduction by 2020. And the region has also surpassed in 2018 targets of 20% reduction set for 2020 and agreed to the new target of 32% energy intensity reduction by 2025 over 2005 levels. These more aggressive aspirational targets for RE and E and C are the key components of our energy future and also crucial to ensure the energy security and sustainability as the demand for energy will grow significantly while the global pressure to shift to cleaner, lower carbon energy system are also happening to address the global climate change issues. Some key directive has been also included for the region's energy sector developments, amongst others. The inclusion of new and emerging technologies and digitalization in energy sectors, of course, including hydrogen technology and also energy storage, the energy investment and financing projects, the inclusion of private sectors, including business forum activities, address climate change issue and decarbonization of energy system, including other cross-cutting issues. The transition to cleaner and sustainable energy will require critical thinking by the decision makers.
Thank you, Dr. Utama, for your inspiring words and actions and for emphasizing a crucial point why clean energy transition is important and yours and the ASEAN Center for Energy's effort to make this happen in the region. Sorry, I think I heard someone. Can please everyone mute themselves? Thank you. Now, moving on to the next segment, we'll dive into setting the scene, context, and objectives of the roundtable. With that, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Alvin Jose, Principal Energy Specialist at SEforALL. Alvin has almost 14 years of experience in energy transition. He has previously worked with UNEP, UNDP, TERI, and Bureau of Energy Efficiency under the Government of India on a wide range of technical assistance programs in Asia-Pacific region in energy efficiency and renewable energy. Alvin, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope that you can hear me now. I would like to now set up the presentation on why we are all over here and why this topic is very important for all of us. So to begin with, I would like to emphasize that the ASEAN+3 and the ASEAN region, which is around 13 countries, is very important for the global climate action efforts. The ASEAN+3 and ASEAN countries together contribute to almost 40% of the global carbon emissions. Majority of it is from China, certainly, but we do have, based on the population, significant emissions also coming out from Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN region. The ASEAN region comprises of almost 9% of the global population, and it is a rapidly developing economy, and with many of them, of the countries in the region, emerging economies and moving into middle income and higher middle income countries. Most of the carbon emissions are coming from the power sector, which is almost 2/3. And if you look at the recent emissions coming from the ASEAN+3 and ASEAN countries, together they comprise from almost 14 gigatons of CO2. So just to put it in a bit of context, it's about 50% of the carbon emissions limit needed by 2030 to achieve 1.5 degrees Paris Agreement goal. So clearly there is a big potential for mitigation from this region. Now, just focusing a bit on the electricity sector, if you combine the electricity consumption and look at it as a global share, the region comprises of almost 38% of the global electricity consumption share. Majority of it is certainly from China, and as I said, that but the ASEAN region is driving a lot of the future growth. And right now it is 4%, but this is certainly going to increase. And if one were to actually break down from which kind of sources the electricity generation is coming from, majority of it is certainly from coal, hydro, electric, and a little bit of natural gas. But recently we have seen from solar and wind, the share going up to almost 30% in the region of the global share. And ASEAN also has a lot of potential to contribute to it. Now, although the ASEAN region is fairly electricity sufficient, but when you look at the SDG 7 numbers of 2018, there are still 29 million people that lack electricity in the region, and 218 million people that lack access to clean cooking. So certainly the transition has to be done in such a way that there's no one left behind. Now, in terms of regional cooperation between the ASEAN+3 and ASEAN, all the ASEAN+3 are major power sector investors, not only in the ASEAN region, but around the world. Traditionally, they have been investing in fossil fuel or brownfield energy sectors. Now, if one were to look at the future investments of all the three ASEAN+3 countries in the ASEAN region, there are about 32 gigawatts of future coal power plant right now planned or committed by the ASEAN+3 countries, which is almost 37% to 38% of the current operating fleet. So still there are significant investments coming in, but this is actually also changing, looking at the falling technology costs of solar and wind and other renewable options. And if you look at the LCOE costs recently discovered in Southeast Asia, you can see that solar is now cheaper than unsubsidized coal. So investing in future coal power plants will actually risk investing into standard assets. So there's a lot of potential to redirect this investment into greenfield sectors. The potential is almost 2.5 times of that we can see in the brownfield sector. So coming into the opportunities, then what is there for the ASEAN region to benefit from? Now, we heard Dr. Nuki mentioned the APEC Phase 2 new ASEAN renewable energy target, which is almost 35% of the installed capacity as an aspiration. Now, if we were to help the ASEAN region to achieve this, they would need an investment of almost $27 billion a year. This is a significant and sizable amount of investment. If localized and into the region, it can actually create a lot of new value chains and added GDP multiplier effects as well. So there's a lot of investment potential, of course, as I mentioned before, almost 2 times than what we can see in the fossil fuel sector. This can also create a lot of jobs, and if actually we combine both renewable energy and energy efficiency targets for the region, it can create almost 4 million jobs, which is almost 3 times what the traditional fossil fuel sectors can provide. Certainly, I have not mentioned about other major carbon emission sectors like industries and transportation. There's also significant opportunities, which we'll try to cover in the next series. So the objectives of this clean energy dialogue, or the first of its kind between SEforALL and ACE, is to basically understand what are the major emerging trends within the ASEAN+3 and ASEAN countries, identify what are the kind of opportunities that there are in terms of the clean energy cooperation, how they can be strengthened, what are the synergies, showcase what are the new progressive national and regional ambitions, what are the kind of mechanisms that is required to kind of promote them, and finally to kind of share experience. We are all here to learn. We are here to present what are the kind of challenges that each of the countries have gone through, and what are the kind of leapfrogging opportunities that are going to be there for everyone to commit to and achieve this clean energy pathway that we are looking for that leaves no one behind. And that's it from my side. Thanks, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Alvin, for highlighting the importance and opportunities for ASEAN+3 and ASEAN countries in the global effort for climate action and SDG 7 goals, and also the objectives of the dialogue. Now, let's dive deeper into the work that ASEAN+3 and ASEAN region are doing to drive action on carbon neutrality and clean energy pathways. For this, I would like to welcome Mr. Glenn Pierce-Oros, Senior Director of International Relations and Special Projects at SEforALL. Glenn joined SEforALL after 15 years with the World Bank. Over the past 18 years, he has been working from country offices in Latin America, South Asia, and Africa. Glenn will moderate this presentation on carbon neutrality policy updates and potential clean energy pathways. Floor is yours, Glenn.
Thank you very much, Min. And it's a pleasure to be here and to contribute to this important session. As was mentioned, the first that we're doing, the first of many, we hope, with ASEAN Center for Energy. I'd like to first just reflect on the importance of having this session today, because this is a conversation we would not be able to have 10 months ago. And it's precisely because of the leadership that we have seen from the different countries whose experiences will be presented shortly, that we're able to start thinking about what is needed for public policy, what incentives need to be provided, what are appropriate strategies, how can this become an economy-wide approach, how can we involve private sector even more. China, Japan, and Korea certainly have some thinking that they can share with us. And it's because of the leadership of President Xi in September of 2020, President Moon in October of 2020, and Prime Minister Suga in October of 2020, that we have these targets and that we have this opportunity to discuss what's the best way forward and how can we learn from those valuable experiences. I'm delighted to have a panel of 4 very distinguished participants who will share with us their different experiences in thinking through these strategies. We'd like to begin with a perspective from Southeast Asia. And so I would like to invite Monika Merdekawati, a Sustainable Energy Officer with the ASEAN Center for Energy, to make her first comments and share her presentation on what's happening in Southeast Asia. As way of introduction, Monika has been with ASEAN Center for Energy for many years now. She conducts research, is responsible for engagement with different government officials covering renewable energy and energy efficiency investment. She's been actually a developer as well in wind and solar farms in Indonesia, and so can bring a very important perspective from that regard. Monika is a mechanical engineer from the University of Southampton in the UK. And Monika, if I could give you the floor, please, for the next 12 minutes, and if you could share with us some of the thinking from ASEAN Center for Energy perspective on what are the opportunities in Southeast Asia. Over to you, Monika.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn, for the kind introduction. Hello, good afternoon from Jakarta. My name is Monika Merdekawati, a researcher of ASEAN Center for Energy under the Department of Sustainable Energy, Renewable Energy, and Energy Efficiency of ACE. For roughly the next 10 minutes, I am pleased to share the clean energy outlook of ASEAN based on the key findings of the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, which was launched in the last year ASEAN Minister of Energy meeting. Okay, I think okay. Yeah, so this presentation, next slide, please. This presentation comprises of 3 main topics. The first one is about the ASEAN Plan of Actions on Energy Cooperation itself, or known as APAEC. The second is the outlook of clean energy development, and the last is the socio-economic aspects of the outlook itself. Next slide, please. So yeah, ASEAN Plan of Actions on Energy Cooperation, or APAEC, is a guiding policy documents that support the implementation of energy cooperation of ASEAN under the framework of ASEAN Economic Community. The aim is to advance the regional integration and connectivity in energy sector between ASEAN member states. Firstly launched in 1998 at the 16th ASEAN Minister of Energy meeting, APAEC has been revisited every 5 years to facilitate the evolving needs and priorities of the member states. Now, APEC has reached its fifth installment with the phase 2 of APEC 2016-2025. APEC phase 2 covered the cooperation for the next 5 years and had been endorsed in the last year AMEM, which was hosted by Vietnam. The theme is to enhance the energy connectivity and market integration to achieve energy security, accessibility, affordability, and sustainability for all. And the sub-theme is to accelerate energy transition and strengthen resilience through greater innovation and cooperation. As noted by the theme, all 7 program areas of APEC are oriented to achieve sustainability amongst the security, accessibility, and affordability. However, APEC has indicated specific regional targets in 2025, which are to solidify the commitment to accelerating energy transition, such as to achieve 23% renewable energy share in total primary energy supply, and by increasing its share in the regional installed capacity by 35%, and to achieve 32% energy intensity reduction. Next slide, please. So before diving into the outlook itself, here is the brief description of the 6 ASEAN Energy Outlook. There are 4 scenarios, which based on 12 years data from 25 until 2017 to project the scenario in 2018 until 2040. The data are gathered from the official sources only from the appointed government officials. So the baseline scenario is based on the Power Development Plan. The ASEAN Country Target Scenario, or ATS, is based on the existing energy efficiency and renewable energy policies and target, and energy targets and measures in the NDC. And we have the third scenario, which is APEC Target Scenario, or APS, is based on the more ambitious renewable energy and energy efficiency measures to achieve regional target under APEC. And the SDG 7 scenario is based on the 4 key indicators under the SDG 7. So further detail can be seen in the table. Next slide, please. So in the baseline scenario, the total final energy consumption is projected to increase by around 1.5 times by 2040, reaching 920 MTOE, with fossil fuels contributed half of the energy demand. However, if the member states to implement the current clean energy targets and policies, especially in the energy efficiency, such as best practices, energy labeling standard, we expect the energy saving of 23% with more stringent policies to achieve the regional or APEC target. We expect to have the energy demand reduced further for another 13%, where industry, transport, and electricity are the top 3 sectors that hold the most potential. On the right side, we see the total primary energy supply in 20 years will grow into 2.5 times higher, reaching 1600 MTOE, with fossil fuels still dominating the baseline scenario. With the savings from the demand side, we also expect the lower need of energy supply in both ATS and APS scenario. Moreover, another important note is that the current clean energy policies will lead ASEAN to achieve 18% renewable energy share by 2025. In other words, the existing policies are not bold enough or sufficient enough to achieve the regional target. Next slide, please. So how is the current progress of renewable energy and energy efficiency achievement in ASEAN? As of 2019, there is much progress on renewable energy penetration if compared to the achievement in 2018. The pandemic may contribute to this stagnation. Moreover, ASEAN needs to do a lot to bridge the gap in achieving the regional target because it is less than 5 years with this 10% gap. Regional collaboration holds important role in accelerating the progress, as individual member states may find it challenging to do the required efforts on their own. One of the key actions is to pursue more cross-border grid within ASEAN to enable multilateral power trade, hence could make to enable large-scale renewable energy investment more profitable. On the right side, ASEAN has better progress on energy efficiency. As of 2018, had achieved a 21% energy intensity level, which already surpassed the regional target of 20% in 2020. However, enhancing the current and national efforts is still necessary to achieve a regional target, 32% energy intensity reduction by 2025. Next slide, please. So now we have come to the question of what measures to close the gap between national target or ATS scenario to the APEC target or APS scenario. The APS scenario is actually built on the member states' national target, and through rigorous meeting and evaluation process with the working group, which consists of government officials, a number of key interventions were identified to achieve ambitious objectives. The first is to invest more in renewable energy power installation with solar and wind. And also the second is to have high efficiency, low emission coal technology as the alternatives for the new fleet and to retrofit the inefficient old power plants, like replacing the subcritical with the supercritical and ultra supercritical technology. And third is to phase out the fossil fuel-based power plant that has reached its limit operational time and replacing it with renewable. Next slide, please. In addition to diversification in the power sector, we noted also transport sector as to hold as the priority to reach the regional targets, such as biofuel and also electric vehicle. With biofuel, for ASEAN countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand had implemented large-scale commercial biofuel, bioethanol, and biodiesel blending programs. And for the rest are considering to adopt it in the near future. And another alternative is to pursue electric vehicle, although most of the member states are in the early stage of the adoption. 4 countries have enacted a national target. They are Brunei, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore. And other 4 countries are planning to set the target and working on the supporting policies. Here we can see that member states with diverse energy sources and large vehicle markets such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam are working on both options. However, actually each country has its own priority whether to focus more on biofuel or on electric vehicle. Next slide, please. So now we have come to the discussion of the social economic implications. Under the baseline scenario, the GHG emissions is expected to rise nearly 2-fold by 2040, where electricity and transport sector remain the biggest emitters. The clean energy measures potentially reduce the emissions 28% lower, and the avoided GHG emission could be higher under the APEC scenario. The power generation remains the largest sectoral contributor in both scenarios. On the right side, with 3 mitigation actions, like lower consumption of fossil fuel, improvement of energy intensity in end user, and greater renewable energy share in power sector, the 3 sectors, electricity, transport, and industry, hold the highest potential to reduce the GHG emission in the APEC scenario. Next slide, please. So to summarize, to realize the clean energy pathway, substantial investment in power sector is required. Requirement. It could reach around $367 billion in the most ambitious scenario, where 76% of this investment goes to renewable. This large sum is not just driven by greater need of capacity expansion, but also by the high cost of the clean technology itself in the first several years of until 2025. And increasing investment in renewable, in particular solar and wind, can create a lot of jobs. In the APEC scenario, the installation of solar and wind would add around 220,000 jobs in 2025, which is 3-fold of what it is projected in the baseline scenario. And higher share of renewable will boost energy security through diversification and self-sufficiency, in addition to reducing the GHG emission and social costs. The externalities that not yet considered in the apparently cheaper investment of fossil fuel would cause significant loss in the future. So the baseline scenario is projected to have a higher social cost in the future. Next slide, please. So to conclude my presentation, I would like to note that ASEAN has the intention to be bolder, to be more ambitious in decarbonizing an energy sector, and ACE is open to collaborate on various cleaner energy initiatives to support APEC, such as financial support for the specific member states or capacity building program and others. I think that's all. Thank you for your kind attention. Back to you, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Monika, and thank you for sticking to time, which is really, really important for this discussion. Before I let you go, Monika, I did want to perhaps touch on one point that you mentioned. It's wonderful to see the targets that ASEAN and APEC is setting for 2025, 2040. Energy efficiency is always considered the first fuel. And there's a very ambitious energy intensity reduction target that you have talked about. Where do you think the most opportunities exist in ASEAN region to achieve this target?
Okay, thank you, Glenn, for the question. Yes, so in terms of energy intensity, as noted in the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, there are basically 3 main sectors that hold the most potential. They are building, industry, and transport. And also these 3 sectors are recognized by APEC document and translated into 3 outcome-based strategies under Program Area 4 of APEC. So given that amongst these 3 industries, the one with the highest energy demand, so it's crucial to adopt ambitious energy efficiency measures on the sector, such as strict emission standards, comprehensive energy monitoring system, and also maybe financing schemes. And in the building sector, I think we could focus on the implementation of energy efficient appliances and code, and also conservation practices. And in transport sector, as also noted in the presentation, there are biofuel and electric vehicles with stronger demand and supply side policies, and with keep pursuing the vehicle efficiency target as noted in the ASEAN Fuel Economy roadmap, and also investing more in the public transit facilities. I think that's all, and I hope it answers your question.
No, that's really, really interesting, Monika, because I think many of those ideas will be reflected in some of what we hear from the other panelists and their experiences in their countries. But extremely important to reiterate the targets that ASEAN is already working towards, and how can we move faster certainly is the biggest challenge for all of us. And so thank you once again, Monika. I'd like to shift then to the experience in Japan. And in October of 2020, Prime Minister Suga really put an important marker down on the table by announcing the ambitious decarbonization plan and the green growth strategy in Japan. What I'd like to note is, in addition to this challenging green growth strategy, which does include many different industries, Japan is also known for placing a very high value in terms of safety and in terms of risk management. Southeast Asia certainly is a region that is no stranger to natural events. And so this risk management approach and this focus on safety is also extremely important for the entire region. I'd like to introduce then our esteemed colleague, Mr. Motofusa Murakami, who is Managing Director of the Energy Conservation Center in Japan. MD Murakami brings more than 25 years experience in the international natural gas and oil and gas development sectors. Only last year, MD Murakami moved over to ECCJ, to head the International Cooperation Unit. As a center of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, ECCJ is conducting energy saving cooperation activity with ASEAN and other 12 countries as well. We're extremely pleased to have Murakami-san with us today, and I would give the floor to you, Mr. Managing Director, for the next 12 minutes to share with us some of the thinking, some of the strategies that have gone into the green growth strategy in Japan. Over to you.
Okay, Pierre-san, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm Murakami from Energy Conservation Center, Japan. Today, I'd like to introduce Japan's action plan towards carbon neutrality in 2050. Please go to the presentation. Okay, please go to the next page. Okay, Japan has already commenced the action toward carbon neutrality. On October 26 in last year, Prime Minister Suga declared that by 2050, Japan will reduce GHG emission to net zero to realize a carbon neutral society. On the same day, Minister Kajiyama made a statement that green growth policy will create a positive cycle of economic growth and environmental protection, and Japan has intention to compile an action plan by end of the year. Following that statement, METI announced Green Growth Strategy on December 25th. On April 22nd of this year, at the Leaders Summit on Climate, Prime Minister Suga made a statement aiming to reduce GHG emission 46% in 2030 from 2013 level. This challenge will be the core strategy for Japan's growth, and we are proceeding discussion for the implementation at the committee with specialists from various areas. Please go to the next page. Next, I will touch on Japan's energy mix. Now, we are in the process of devising the 2030 plan, which we made in 2015. When we make a specific energy policy, we consider 3 E+S. Among them, we put safety in the top priority and make harmonization with other 3 aspects: energy security, economic efficiency, and environment. In the existing plan, primary energy share is fossil 76%, nuclear 10 to 11%, renewable 30 to 40%. Now, we are reviewing it to reflect the new NDC target 46% reduction from 2013, considering active introduction of renewable energy as much as possible. Please go to the next page. Next, I will touch on Japan's NDC. With reference to the Paris Agreement, by 2013, Japan decided to reduce GHG 26% from 2013. As this chart shows, until 2018, we have steadily reduced to 12%. However, as I mentioned in page 1, we established a new reduction target of the 46%, and we are accelerating activities. That details are under discussion among experts with hearing from private sectors. Please go to the next page. The next is a step to formulate new energy plan. The first step is to identify the challenge to realize 3 E+S. It means fundamentals of policy. This time, Japan faced with confusion of power supply in January, and the importance of the resilience is one of the items to be considered. Next step is challenges for carbon neutrality by 2050, such as analysis for the large CO2 emission sector and securing investment for new technology. We formulated the green growth strategy to set a roadmap for technical innovation and necessary support by the government. Next step is to formulate 2030 plan as a midterm target. This plan is expected to be more specific plan. We are in working status by each energy source. Please go to the next page. Next is the introduction of the green growth strategy. As I mentioned in page 1, METI released this last December. This strategy covers a wide range and reports in 84 pages. You can find the whole content from the METI's homepage. I will touch briefly. To proceed with this strategy, we need to change our mindset. Previously, the countermeasures to global warming were considered as a cost or constraints to economic growth. Now, we recognize carbon neutrality as an opportunity for growth, and we formulate this strategy as a set of the industrial policy which will create a positive cycle of economic growth and environmental protection. We understand that it is not easy, so the government will make strong support for the company's activity. To induce companies' investment in new technology, we set ambitious roadmaps to realize carbon neutrality by 2050. Government will support financial, tax, and regulatory aspects. As shown in at the end, you can find in Annex 2 and Annex 3, we set an action plan for 14 growing industrial sectors like offshore wind power, fuel ammonia, hydrogen, mobility, and battery with 5 policy tools like 2 trillion yen Green Innovation Fund and tax incentives. Please go to the next page. Next is the energy outlook of carbon neutrality in 2050. In the non-electricity sector, the first priority is electrification. We will proceed with decarbonization of electricity. Electrification will contribute to carbon neutrality. Therefore, we expect that electricity demand will increase 30 to 50%. Other heat demand will be covered by non-fossil energy like hydrogen and methanation and CO2 recovery. In the area of electricity, decarbonization of power sources is a major premise. As for renewable energy, it will be introduced as much as possible. However, considering adjustability, transmission capacity, inertia, natural conditions, and social restrictions, we cannot expect 100% share, and currently expected to be 50 to 60% compared with current 18%. As for hydrogen and ammonia, currently in the stage of development of technology, we will try to establish technology and industry by increasing supply and demand, construct infrastructure, and proceed cost reduction. We are expecting 10% share. As for thermal power, we will continue to use with CCUS and carbon recycling. Nuclear is recognized as an established decarbonizing technology. By improving safety, we will try to restart existing units as well as to develop safer next generation reactors. We are expecting 30 to 40% to thermal and nuclear power. However, this figure is regarded as a reference for deepening discussion among various specialists in energy field. They are discussing multiple scenarios. Government will proceed to make policy with further discussions. In the end, Japan has commenced actions with roadmap towards carbon neutrality by 2050. Specific implementations are still under discussion by specialists considering 3E+S with hearing from the private sector. Please go to the next page. To the end. This is annex, so you can find Japan's enemies. This is annex to the 5 policy tools. Next one is annex 3, the 14 growth sectors. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Murakami-san. That was really very helpful to get a good appreciation of the different roadmaps, the different strategies that are being put in place. For the rest of us, these presentations will be made available. There's a lot of information in these presentations, so please don't worry, we will make them available. Before moving on to the experience from China, Murakami-san, I'm interested because you've laid out the different roadmaps, the different strategies for different industries. If from your own personal experience, what might be considered the low-hanging fruit or the easiest to implement, and what you expect will be the most difficult to implement from what you've seen?
Okay, thank you for the very interesting questions. Frankly speaking, in the scenario of the carbon neutral, I understand that there is no low-hanging fruits. It means that the scenario of carbon neutral itself is a very tough way. So any road is very difficult. So currently we are discussing with various about various carbon neutral scenarios with energy experts. In any scenario, we must proceed with research to develop new technologies and cost reduction. Such kind of issues to be solved. For a certain period, we will continue efforts to identify which one can be realistic pieces to formulate complicated puzzle toward the carbon neutral. But if I dare to categorize among the various technologies, the renewable like solar and wind and nuclear can be recognized or categorized as already established decarbonization technologies, but they cannot cover whole the area. That's the matter.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very interesting point, which is there's no low-hanging fruit in terms of some of the low carbon scenarios. I am aware that there is a global zero emission research center that Japan has recently established, and hopefully perhaps in the next session we can hear a little bit more about that. But I do see that as an opportunity for this technology development, as well as sharing of that technology experience with other countries. So I wanted to recognize that effort from Japan as well. Thank you very much, Murakami-san, for your presentation and your ideas.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn now, and also thank you very much for staying to the time. I'd like to turn now to the presentation from China, and in a sense, I think there's a very legitimate point to make, which is China perhaps kicked off a lot of these ambitious targets when President Xi made those net zero commitments by 2060 at the UN General Assembly in September of 2020. And certainly since then, we've read about the 14th five-year plan that was approved recently. The question, certainly for many people, is it will be wonderful to achieve this net zero 2060 target. How can we do that quickly? How can it be done quickly? and what's needed along the way. What does that roadmap look like? We're very honored to have Dr. Wang Yi, who is Vice President of the Institutes of Science and Development at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Dr. Wang is also a member of the Standing Committee of the 13th National People's Congress of China, and he brings over 30 years of work experience in public policy, strategic study of environment, energy, and sustainable development. His research has contributed to many of China's current policies for environmental protection, for ecological civilization, institutional reform, and low carbon transition. He has been recognized by several ministerial level awards, and we're certainly happy to have him share some of his time with us today. I would like to offer you the floor, Dr. Wang, for the next 12 minutes, and we'll be listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Glenn, for your introduction about China's announcement last year on carbon peaking and carbon neutrality targets. I also would like to thank you, the organizer, to invite me to share my thoughts and introduce Chinese experience, and also the potential cooperation between China and ASEAN countries. First of all, I would like to introduce some new progress about China's next five-year plan. Since the President Xi's announcement last year on China's new targets on carbon peaking and carbon neutrality, I think China go to a new channel to achieve the targets 100%. So in China, I think we have this kind of system to realize our new development concept. We have a legal framework, even for the climate. Up now, many is not ready, but we are continue to drafting more legislation, and we also have a very strong planning framework with mandatory targets as the main body of the plan, and also action plan, the comprehensive implement program, and the pilot project, and also the scale up based on pilots. So that's the first one. And for the targets, I think we have here, this slides show our mandatory targets, including energy intensity, carbon intensity, share of the environmental good days, and also share of the water body quality, and including, and the last one is forest area. I think that mandatory targets is a domestic legally binding in China. We also have a lot of expected targets here, cover including resources, energy, and pollution reduction. So that's basic targets. And we also have a lot of priorities. So here it's like strategic tasks. The first one, I think, in the coming 5 years, but also the beyond, China will accelerate our green transition of the whole social and economic development, and establish a new economic system with the green, low carbon, and the circular economy development. So I think that's the first task. The second one, we build a modern energy system featured as the clean, low carbon, safety, and high efficiency. So I think this one, I think China will push our energy revolution from fossil fuel to the new energy system. So I think China will speed up non-fossil fuel development. For example, by the 2030, China's wind and PV installed capacity will reach at 1.2 terawatt. So it's a big number. I think in 2050, I think China's renewable will over 5 terawatts. So I think it's a big challenge for China to establish so big system of renewables. And we also push the structure adjustment, especially for the coal. How to make the coal orderly phase out, I think is another challenge for China, but China will realize our targets. And the others, I think we would like to, establish new electricity and grid system based on this new energy as a main body. So that's another parts, components of a modern energy system. The third one, I think, is about we would like to form a new pattern of the developing and protecting China's territory space. That means China will base the main function, for example, the urban area, the rural area, and also the protected areas. We have three main parts, but the new situations how to to develop the so big share of the wind and the PV. I think a big challenge because China, I think in the coming years, China will the total land use for the renewable will over 100,000 square meters. So I think it's a big challenge. Square kilometers, sorry. So it's a big challenge. Another the third tasks. Last one, I think we will continue to improve our air quality and also the water quality and the climate issues, including we'll have a more detailed plan for the CO2 emissions, but also non-CO2 emissions control, including the CHC4 and HFC and PFC and etc. And also we would like to push and strengthen the South-South cooperation and also push the international climate cooperations. I think more focus on China's cooperation with ASEAN countries. I think is the first priority for China's international cooperation on the climate. On the other hand, China will push our national emission trading system. We also released some management regulations, but I think next month we'll formally run this system. Even it's only covered the electricity system, but I think the total CO2 emission are over 3.5 billion CO2 tons of CO2, biggest ETS in the world. But it's not enough. We have more documents already and coming. Here I just mentioned about the China's new top policy here. I just mentioned, and also based on the last month international summit and conference, I think Chinese leaders announced more the documents, more targets on the climate-related targets, and also I think new documents are coming soon. Especially for the Central Committee, now release we establish a 1+N system policy. The one would be the guidance of the carbon peaking and the carbon neutrality, and then they have a more action plan and sector plan, and also implementing the program and follow this guidance. So I think this is a basic China's policy system for the carbon peaking and carbon neutrality realizing system. In China, I think we also have a lot of experience for the renewables, for the energy transitions. Here, this just show you we code the model of a renewable plus model, and means how to combine the renewable development with poverty reduction, with agriculture development, and also the ecological restoration, and recently produce green hydrogen in investor countries. I think up to now, I think the cost of the wind or the PV in China is only less than 0.1 renminbi yuan per kilowatt hour. And I think for the energy, for the green hydrogen now, I think also could compete with fossil fuel energy in some areas, not the whole areas. The problem is for China's transition now, it's not the single technology cost, it's a system cost, the problem. Because it's not only the established wind power or PV, the equipment, but also how to establish the system. That means we have the technology plus a storage system, plus a smart grid, and also distributed energy supply system. So this new system, how to reduce the system cost, it's the next step, is a challenge for China's renewable transition. So that's a basic. For China, I think we also developed a lot of modeling and summarize our best practice. Maybe could share with other countries, especially for the ASEAN countries. So we also have organized many research organizations from ASEAN countries to discuss and how to use our models and based on your experience and based on your data. So that's one. So in the future, I think for the ASEAN countries, we identify some prioritized areas, including how to have a more comprehensive planning, not only for the clean energy transition, but also for the sustainable development goals and NDC realizing. That's the one. Second one is NBS, nature-based solution, and how to realize, for example, especially in some ASEAN countries, how to develop the mangrove conservation cooperation, and we can form alliance to protect the mangrove system. And also we would like to establish some city-based alliance to push the low carbon city development. And another component is capacity building for the energy transitions and also for the low carbon development. So I think we have a lot of ideas on this, and we have do this as a case, but nature-based solution for the global value chain, for example, palm oil in Southeast Asian countries, and also some other forest-related products, and how to make this supply chain greening. I think that's another topics. So, and for the hot commodity, I think we would like to use the circular economy development model to push to realize our carbon peaking and carbon neutrality tasks. So that's another one. And then for the urban, I think urban will play a very important role in the coming years for achieving carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. I think in this area also could have a more international cooperation. So that's all I would like to mention, and I'd like to stop here and give the floor back to the Claire. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. That was very clear. That was very helpful for us to appreciate a bit more some of the thinking, some of the strategies that are going into the implementation of the 2060 net zero commitment. You mentioned at several points the interest of being able to have some cooperation, some collaboration with ASEAN countries. Murakami-san as well from Japan mentioned the same. I think this is part of the value of this ASEAN+3 engagement, and we're certainly happy that this can be one session that contributes to that. But there's more to do, as Dr. Wang mentioned as well. If we think about something very powerful that you said, which was wanting to find a new pattern for developing and protecting China's geographical space. What does that mean, in your view, for China's a very big country, for provincial level, for local governments, for local actors, subnational actors to be involved in this? What does that look like within the 14th five-year plan?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. I think at a national level, we have a new law on the spatial planning. And so in the coming years, I think China will set up a top-down, spatial planning for this, and especially you have a red line regulations on this. And so I think we should increase our protected areas from now. For example, I think almost 30% of the total territory would be the product for that. So that means that targets the attribute to the different province based on the geographic conditions, east, middle, and west part. That's a basic idea. Second one I just mentioned, and how to integrate the two the carbon targets into the new spatial planning. It's a challenge because we should use more land for the renewables, for the wind and solar energies. So how to use the mixed land use policy? I think we should consider, and maybe in the coming months we will have a new plan or new policy and a new scenario to resolve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. I think that's a very interesting sequence that we're building, at least through these ideas, which is how we need to rethink territorially, which is your point, and you did mention new low carbon cities. And again, just to remind us, Japan looking at different industries, it is economy-wide, it is territorial-wide, this challenge. Thanks once again, Dr. Wang, and hopefully we can hear more of your ideas in the next session. I'd like to turn now to our colleague from Korea, Mr. Sung-Hoon Kim, who is director of the Renewable Energy Policy Division of the Korea Energy Agency and its New and Renewable Energy Center. He has played a key role in presenting the vision and strategy of energy policy in Korea. And within Korea, he recently launched the innovative policies such as Korea RE100, Renewable Energy 100, and carbon certification systems to realize carbon neutrality by 2050. It's with pleasure, Sung-Hoon Kim, that we invite you to take the floor, because what President Moon announced in October of 2020 was a Korean New Deal, a Green New Deal, which is, again, very ambitious. In particular, I've always thought it was very innovative to also bring in a new digitalization deal as part of this approach. And certainly there's quite a bit that we can learn from the Korean experience and how Korea has been thinking about its ambitious targets for carbon neutrality. So over to you, Sung-Hoon Kim. Welcome, and 12 minutes, please.
Greeting. I am Sung-Hoon Kim, Director of the Energy Policy Division at the Korea Energy Agency. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here for sharing the knowledge and thoughts with you. Most of all, I appreciate all stakeholders for preparing this event despite of the pandemic. We hope that the presentations and discussions at this round table will lead to establishing a new approach for more progress in addressing the challenges facing carbon neutrality across the world. Next, please. The subject, next, please. Yeah, next. Yeah, please. Yeah, next. Next, please. 여기 맞지? The subject of my presentation is the pivotal role of renewable energy for carbon neutrality by 2050. The order of the presentation content will be an overview of Korea's carbon neutrality implementation strategy, roadmap, and tasks. Lastly, I will introduce the KRE 100, which is receiving a lot of attention in Korea. Korea declared to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 in October 2020. Next, please. In order to realize carbon neutrality by 2050, we have proposed a vision of proactive response with new economic and social development strategies from adaptive reduction, focusing on reducing GHG. The policy direction and tasks are the following. First, the government will make a strong push for carbon neutrality in all areas of economy and society, including industry, transportation, buildings, and land. Next, please. Second, we will strive to create a low carbon industry ecosystem, promising companies in new low carbon industries will receive assistance so that they can secure a commanding position in the global market ahead of others. An ecosystem for innovation will be formed by establishing a platform where entities from large companies to startups can work together. Next, please. Next time. Third,
forward, please.
Sorry. As the role of renewable energy for net zero becomes important, the following challenges and tasks will promote it. Challenges include acquiring remarkable potential supply, innovation of deployment and development, breaking technology limitation, enhancing energy security, great switch of power systems, expanding green hydrogen, and integrating energy systems. Details, including the challenges, will be explained on the next slides. Yeah. First, expanding renewable energy is essential for carbon neutrality by acquiring remarkable potential supply and innovating deployment and development in NRE. We plan to significantly expand its potential to improve efficiency and use building walls and farmland with abundant potential. In particular, if solar energy module efficiency is improved from 17.5% to 40%, and capacity of wind turbine is increased from 3 megawatt to 20 megawatt, the potential of preferential supply of PV and wind will be estimated to increase 2.3 times. And when using the south facing wall of the building, the potential of preferential PV supply will increase by 30%. In addition, it will be obliged to install RE facility by local governments, and it will be mandatory to install renewable energy when creating new industrial complexes. Public property with enormous potential for renewable energy supply will be enabled to develop. In the private sector, the community projects such as self-generation or co-sharing of a power plant will be expanded. Next slide. Second, we will enhance energy security by overcoming technology limitations and innovating RE supply technology. We plan to innovate the supply technology by developing efficient solar cells with more than 40% efficiency, improving the use of a building integrated PV system, developing large-scale wind turbines with more than 20 megawatts, automating wind farm operations, and developing high-efficiency liquefied hydrogen. In addition, we will strengthen energy security by obtaining technology for recycling and remanufacturing key materials such as solar fuel cells and stabilizing supply of material components. Next slide. Third, the power system needs to be switched to make the main power source of renewable energy. The introduction of obligations of an offer of inertia and frequency control, automatic adjustment with resources such as self-generation, smart appliances, and electric car storage tanks, long-term storage for seasonal demand, mandatory of balancing supply and demand in real time, and enhancement of responsibility and capacity of DSO. We plan to switch a hybrid power grid and drive to develop a Northeast Asia supergrid by combining AC and DC power grid. Next slide. Fourth, we plan to increase green hydrogen and integrate energy markets. Green hydrogen can store a large-scale RE for a long time and be used as a key resource for sector coupling in heat and industrial sectors where carbon reduction is difficult. By considering the factor, we will gradually expand the mandatory use of green hydrogen in power generation, transport, and industrial processes. We will activate sector coupling among energy sources with green hydrogen and enable mutual recognition for the amount of obligation supply of RE from RPS, RFS, RHO by converting it as electricity. We will introduce an integrated system of demand and supply where demand sources with enormous potential carbon reduction, such as improved efficiency, peak reduction, compete with supply sources enabling to net zero. Next page. In this time, I will talk about the KRE100 customized in Korea. Next slide. Next, please. The Global RE100 is a voluntary global campaign led by CDP, where influential global companies with power consumption over 100 gigawatt hour commit to rely 100% on electricity generated from RE for their global operations. The trend of joining RE100 is spreading from companies in EU and US to ASEAN companies. Currently, more than 300 companies, including Google, Apple, and BMW, join RE100, especially Korean companies, including SK and LG Energy Solution, have joined global RE100. Companies operating in Korea have had no way to purchase electricity generated from renewable sources, except for self-generation. For this reason, it is difficult for companies in Korea to join global RE100. Inspired by the global RE100 movement, Korean RE100 is introduced to allow companies and other electricity consumers to selectively purchase and use electricity generated from renewable energy sources in Korea by using the 5 sourcing methods such as green premium, REC purchases, indirect PPAs, equity participation, and self-generation. Next slide. Currently, the global society are inspired regarding a declaration of carbon neutrality in China, Japan, and Korea by considering that 3 nations account for 28.5% of the world's population, 24.2% of GDP, and 25.7% of global GHG emissions. The economic and environmental effect of carbon neutralization is expected to be significant. We look forward to achieving a successful carbon neutrality by 2050. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Thank you so much, Sang-Hoon Kim, and thank you for keeping to the time. Very well done. You talked quite a bit about some of the challenges that are being faced by the by the Korean economy. In particular, I liked one thing that you mentioned in terms of the great switch of the power system, and linking that to the experience of the Korea RE100. How has this great switch been received by large Korean businesses? Have there been any barriers or challenges to convince them that this is that they need to be part of this great switch?
Thank you for your question. It has the high potential to achieve a carbon neutrality goal, as electricity consumption in industrial sector accounts for 85%, with 205 terawatt hour in the total energy consumption, 240 terawatt hour. In particular, high energy consuming industries such as steel and chemical engineering account for 70%, with 170 terawatt hour in the total energy consumption. If the companies joining KRE100 convert high power consumption into renewable energy, it is expected to have a significant impact on Korea's carbon neutrality policy. In addition, without using more than 100 gigawatt hour of electricity, which is different from global RE100. Small and medium-sized companies, public institutions, and local government is enabled to join KRE100. We are also studying ways to make citizens join RE100 in the future. By diversifying participants and activating KRE100, increasing the conversion rate of renewable energy will contribute to achieving carbon neutrality. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And that reminds us of the importance of bringing all these economic players into this great switch. We're running a little bit behind time, so I would like to wrap up just briefly, thanking Sang-Hoon Kim for his esteemed participation. Dr. Wang, thank you for your esteemed participation. Murakami-san, thank you very much for your participation, your esteemed participation. And Monika Merdekawati, thank you very much for your esteemed participation. You've given us many ideas to start thinking about, and we hope to take that momentum into the next session. but I will hand over to my colleague Min, who will lead us in that direction. Min, over to you.
Thank you, Glenn, and to all experts for sharing the emerging trends on clean energy transition today. It is really exciting to see such important developments and ambition setting from China, Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN region. Now, we would like to take a short break between these two important panel discussions to speak about the UN high-level dialogue on energy that's happening this September on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Convened as the first global gathering on energy under the auspices of the UN General Assembly since the UN Conference on New and Renewable Sources of Energy in 1981, the overarching goal of the high-level dialogue on energy is to promote the implementation of the energy-related goals and targets of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The dialogue will raise ambition and accelerate action towards the achievement of the SDG 7 energy targets by catalyzing innovative solutions, investment, and multi-stakeholder partnerships in support of the Decade of Action to deliver the SDGs and the Paris Agreement on climate change. Damilola Ogunbi, CEO and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All, is the global champion and co-chair of the dialogue, along with co-chair UNDP Administrator Akim Steiner and UNDESA Under Secretary General Liu Zhenmin. SEforALL is playing a key role in the planning and organization of the dialogue, including supporting the development of new energy compact that will allow governments, business, and other stakeholders to sign up to specific voluntary targets and initiatives in support of SDG 7. This video you're gonna watch right now is about the energy compacts and how you can join the initiative. I hope you enjoy watching.
What are energy compacts? Nearly 800 million people don't have access to electricity. Close to 3 billion don't have access to clean cooking fuels or technologies. And renewable energy delivers less than a third of electricity generation. Affordable and clean energy for all in the next decade requires urgent action. Governments, businesses, finance, development organizations, and others need to join forces to meet this ambition. Energy compacts have been created to move us forward together. They are designed to be ambitious commitments on Sustainable Development Goal 7 that support action and collaboration. Energy compacts are voluntary commitments to specific actions to accelerate progress on energy access, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. They will bring us closer to Sustainable Development Goal 7 by 2030, in line with the Paris Agreement on climate change. Compacts are open to any government or organization that supports energy access and clean energy transitions. For example, a national government might commit to expanding access to clean cooking solutions to 70% of their population by 2025. A business might commit to 100% renewable energy consumption by 2030. And a civil society group might commit to capacity building to support a government to realize its stated goals. Any commitment must be backed by a clear set of actions, and these must align with Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement, including nationally determined contributions. Energy compact commitments will be tracked over time. This makes us all accountable for the goals we have set for ourselves. The compacts have been launched as part of the upcoming UN high-level dialogue on energy, being held in September 2021. But energy compacts will be an important platform for action on the clean energy transition for years to come. Commit to an energy compact with UN Energy and Sustainable Energy for All.
Welcome back and thank you for remaining with us. The next portion of the program will be a panel discussion on the opportunities for ASEAN and ASEAN+3 clean energy cooperation. To discuss this crucial topic, I am pleased to welcome Ms. Ksenia Petrichenko, who is the Economic Affairs Officer from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Ksenia is energy efficiency and renewable energy expert who has various experiences in international projects including UNEP, IFC, and EBRD, among others. Over to you, Ksenia.
Thank you very much for a kind introduction.
Indeed, I'm working with Economic and Social Commission for Asian Pacific Energy Division. We're supporting our member states on delivery of sustainable development goals, specifically on sustainable energy, as well as on the aspects of regional energy connectivity. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this next panel session on clean energy transition challenges and opportunities for ASEAN and ASEAN+3 countries. And I would like to start with introducing our panel. Some of the members you already know from the previous session. We have with us Dr. Wang Yi from China Academy of Sciences, Mr. Sang-Hoon Kim from Korea Energy Agency, and Mr. Matafusa Murakami from Energy Conservation Center, Japan. You heard their presentations from the previous session, which was extremely insightful. And we also have two more panelists, Ms. To Niem Ngo, Executive Director from Vietnam Energy Transition Initiative. This is the first think tank in Vietnam that specialized in energy transition policy and climate protection. She has more than 20 years of experience working as an independent consultant for various energy projects funded by World Bank, EU, UN, ADB, and the Ministry of Industry and Trade, as well as the Ministry of Science and Technology. And her professional activities focus on energy economics, energy modeling, energy policy, and assessment of low carbon energy technologies. We also have with us Ms. Sirpa Elena Yarvenpa, Director of Southeast Asia Energy Transition Partnership. Ms. Sirpa has over 20 years experience in the energy policy sector. She helped to launch the partnership at the ASEAN Energy Ministerial in 2020 and joins its effort to champion the region's potential to enhance its energy efficiency, integration of renewable energy sources, and expansion of smart power grids to pursue the achievement of the sustainable development and the Paris climate goals. Sirpa has extensive experience with other international organizations such as Global Green Growth Institute, UNDP, and the Asia Development Bank. So welcome our distinguished panelists, and we'll continue discussion on clean energy transition. So I'll have several questions to each of you, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. So let's keep the answers concise to keep to the time. I will start with Sirpa. Sirpa, in the previous session, we heard a lot about the ambitious clean energy commitments set by China, Japan, and South Korea. As Southeast Asia Energy Transition Partnership is closely working with various countries in the region, how do you see the potential for increasing regional clean energy collaboration in light of these trends towards carbon neutrality? And what do you think the partnership itself could play in this process? Please, Sirpa.
Thank you, Ksenia. Let me just check if you can hear me properly.
Very well, thank you.
Okay, excellent. And thanks also to the Sustainable Energy for All, a sister organization to Southeast Asian Energy Transition Partnership, for organizing this opportunity for sharing experiences here in Southeast Asia that come from East Asia. So let me first give you a little bit of a picture from where ETP, Energy Transition Partnership, is coming from. It's a relatively new construct, originally suggested by President Macron. He proposed to bring the philanthropies together with governments to lend their collaboration and convening power to advance energy transition in the region. This unique consortium brings together the governments of France, United Kingdom, Germany, and Canada, and the philanthropies of Children Investment Fund Foundation and IKEA Foundation and Sequoia Climate Foundation and others, to a unique consortium of membership with the UNOPS as a fund manager to make bold efforts at enabling energy transition at various fronts. So in the region, ETP works across the stakeholder communities, ranging from governments, the civil society, and private sector forces that are critical for reaching the tipping point in pursuit of the energy transition, and the objective of reaching 100% renewable energy systems by 2050. So ETP works through two major objectives. Firstly, through enhancing collaboration and bringing stakeholders together to generate a stronger force behind the efforts to make the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris climate goals a reality. Working together, ETP funders benefit from reduced transaction costs and greater voice and capacity to influence, and broader alliances that speak to all energy transition stakeholders. And of course, working under UN flag, furthermore brings known benefits of neutrality and transparency. Secondly, ETP works through its own technical assistance and capacity building program designed to break through the specific barriers to energy transition. So this is where I can come really to your question, Ksenia, because we find that it's really important in setting the North Star goals for an effort like ETP, and also for all of us that have a stake in energy transition, and that is leadership. And we have seen the galvanizing of the minds already in the Paris Agreement in 2015, and now have ever higher expectations of the signatory countries as we come back together to review these commitments in November 2021. So the net zero carbon goals of China, Japan, and South Korea are very much helping to bring Southeast Asia together to achieve green futures here for all. So it's really huge news that we are receiving from East Asia, as these countries have joined the growing number of countries that have declared zero carbon targets. And even as we wait for the concrete plans that were mentioned by the previous speakers to move into implementation, we are seeing greater seriousness around the energy transition conversation here in Southeast Asia. We have seen many encouraging signs. The Philippines and Indonesia have declared coal moratorium commitments. Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam have all committed to productive dialogue under the COP26 Energy Transition Council processes aimed at coal phase out, increasing renewable energy investments, and reduction in carbon intensity of the economies. We at ETP want to see these commitments translated to concrete goals and programs. ETP promises and fosters new resources for the champions in the civil society, private sector, and governments that are ready to lead the region to green futures. ETP promises additional resources for policy formulation and implementation, for expanding grid capacity, for accelerating access to finance and energy transition investments, and also additional resources for knowledge and awareness building. To build capacity, for instance, ETP has recently launched a tender for a program called Energy Transition Roundtable that brings together stakeholder practitioners on how to take advantage in concrete terms of the global innovations and testing of new concepts and technologies. And ETP focuses on these partnerships. China, Japan, and South Korea offer a tremendous ground for strong collaboration for energy transition. For instance, many of the East Asian financing institutions are turning down coal investments. These commitments need to take even stronger root. Indeed, ETP is prepared to support a progressive program for the region's financing institutions to move toward greener portfolios with stronger environmental, social, and governance requirements. There are other opportunities for collaboration as well. There are opportunities to foster foreign direct investments from East Asia to Southeast Asia for manufacturing components for renewable energy generation and energy efficiency. There are opportunities for Southeast Asian countries to learn from their Eastern neighbors on renewable energy development, operation, and maintenance processes. Nikkei last year estimated that the renewables business, and Alvin already mentioned this in some extent regarding the jobs, that in Southeast Asia, the renewables business is likely to be worth 3 times the coal business of the past decades. And there is room for sharing a stronger commitment to abate the coal power generation pipelines and to decommission existing plants. Here, ETP is aiming to help the region's governments with abatement of future fossil fuel generation and support early retirement of existing coal-fired power generation capacity. Again, partnerships, Ksenia, will be essential. ETP aims to lend its capacity to support these efforts in tandem with others. we are ready to support the governments with the necessary adjustments in investment policies, tariff adjustments, contracting frameworks, power sector governance, with opening of space for finance and with smart grid expansion to ensure that renewable energy is facilitated into consumption. Let me leave you with this. At the Southeast Asian Energy Transition Partnership, we seek the pledges of carbon neutrality from China, Japan, and South Korea to be accompanied by progressive plans, step-by-step roadmaps that provide the demonstration effects and notable examples of leadership to the Southeast Asian countries for these countries to translate energy transition to make its contribution in reaching the 2050 carbon neutrality goal. Ksenia, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sirpa. You touched upon so many very important aspects, bringing stakeholders together, translating the commitments into the actual policies and the programs, and of course, capacity building, support on investments. And it's great that ATP has additional resources for the governments and the stakeholders to really make an impact with these commitments and learn from each other. So thank you very much for outlining all these important aspects. With this, I would like to continue this discussion regarding the region in general and how countries can learn from each other and how these commitments are potentially impacting the whole region. So the next question I want to address to Toi Ninh Ngo from Vietnam Energy Transition Initiative. The initiative is conducting very interesting analytical work on various aspects of energy transition, both in Vietnam and in region in general. So, Ms. Ngo, how, in your view, how do you see these commitments to carbon neutrality and different net zero policies by ASEAN+3 countries would be impacting or maybe already impacting Southeast Asian countries overall and maybe Vietnam specifically?
So actually, I can see that in ASEAN, the impact of the zero carbon will be have a big impact to the energy system, especially in Vietnam. We can see that in the future, the more electricity demand will be increased, and renewable energy will be driven, and the increase of the flexibility system of the power sector will be much more needed. We also will need to be smart use of the CCS, hydrogen, and maximum reduce or efficient use of fossil fuel resource. To back up for the whole system, we also need to have better electricity grid upgrade and the interconnection between the ASEAN countries. So from that, I could see that the zero carbon by 2050 from ASEAN+3 will have a big impact to the policy of the different countries, from the innovation technology, energy assets, energy price, especially in Vietnam, where we have quite good electricity price at the moment, but maybe in the future when the electricity demand is increasing, then we may have a revise or restructuring the power markets. So from that, then we may need to set up the competitive markets. From that point, then the electricity energy price will be like differently and need to have some new policy for that. But up to that, we will need to have a better finance and investment mechanism so that it can, beside the change of the system, then we also need to make it more sustainable and more reliable. To that, then we also can see the big impact of the energy transition in the future, which may make the whole ASEAN is moving forward to the net zero. That is my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ngo. Indeed, I think we all learned and very well aware from the presentations by China, Korea, and Japan that the energy transition towards carbon neutrality is a complex progress, and you very well lined up all these very important aspects which need to come together for the country to reach carbon neutrality. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and insights on that. With that, I want to continue discussion with the 3 countries we heard from in the previous session, and perhaps turn to Dr. Wang Yi to drive us a little bit more deeper into the carbon neutrality plan of China. We heard again so many aspects, and it's very complex strategy. But Dr. Wang Yi, if you could tell us, in your view, what are the most important elements of China's plan for the ASEAN countries, what they can learn from in order to advance their clean energy targets and start and continue on this process of clean energy transition as well. Dr. Wang?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Sonia, and for your question. I think the first one, I think for the future's carbon peaking and carbon neutrality, I think the direction is very clear, but the roadmap is not very clear. I know, honestly, because there's big countries. For example, I just mentioned about the new energy system, because based on the current estimation, I think for the electricity consumption, for example, up now, the per capita electricity consumption in China now is only the 5.3 thousand kilowatt hours. But in the future, I think that will be double, maybe the 3rd times. So that means the big consumption. For example, if the double, that means the total electricity consumption about over 1.5 billion, the kilowatt hours. So and go back to the renewables. I think it will be the over 5 billion kilowatt. So that's so big. And how do we solve the problem? And how, for example, for the storage system, it's also very big. How to share the cost? I think now we should, step by step. We should have the first plan, maybe just the 5-year plan, but we'll continue to discuss what's the other 30 years, how to combine the carbon peak with the carbon neutrality. I think that's a big challenge. So the first step for the next 5 years plan, only think about the peaking issues. For example, how to phase out the coal and how to reduce the scattered coal with the electricity coal, and also how to develop the CCS and CCUS, maybe the BE CCS, the more technologies. So it's like a system engineering. I think in the coming months, the Chinese government and including many different ministries will set up the sectoral planning. So that's a first one. But we need a coordinating mechanism at the national level. For example, in State Council, we have a new leading group and to set up the different, the distribution of the duty and tasks. So it's like you would like to use bottom-up, top-down design and plus bottom-up practice, and then we can, in the future, maybe we can readjust our, the targets and actions based on our experience analysis. So that's like a practical roadmap. It's not the very clear roadmap up now. So I think that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. Indeed, I totally agree with you that the next step is really to break it down, the plan, and bring it to the practical level. And the sectoral plans, I think it's definitely will definitely help to clarify the actual key points and actions for different ministries and different stakeholders. And of course, as you mentioned, coordination mechanism is extremely important to bring all these actions together in line with this great strategy which China has lined up. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I think this is definitely a very important point for any country who is continuing on this pathway of energy transition, how to bring different sectors into the common goal and how to bring different stakeholders together. So thank you very much for pointing that out. With that, I would also like to call on Mr. Sang-Hoon Kim to share some of his ideas, continuing the discussion on clean energy transition. Mr. Sang-Hoon Kim, we heard that South Korea under Green New Deal has promoted clean energy investments for sustainable recovery. And we also heard from Sirpa and other panelists how important the aspect of investment is for ensuring energy transition and towards carbon neutrality. Could you please elaborate a bit more on some of the key aspects of the clean energy investments for sustainable recovery under Green New Deal? And what, in your view, what are the aspects which other ASEAN and Southeast Asian countries can learn from this policy? Mr. Sang-Hoon Kim.
Thank you for your interesting question. As you know, the Korean government announced Korean version of the New Deal and carbon neutrality by 2050 last year. Since this year, it has implemented various policies, including energy efficiency, activation of renewable energy supply, and hydrogen economy to achieve net zero and digital innovation of social structure. The various ministries and public institutions are cooperating and working with each other in their own areas of work to achieve their goals. As it has done so far, KEA will do its best to reach net zero across the society by enhancing energy efficiency in the industrial, building, and transport sectors, and expanding renewable energy supply. In addition, we are working with international societies to effectively respond to the climate change across the world. Especially, we are helping ASEAN countries innovate their industries, pioneer the green economy, and create new jobs by supporting ASEAN countries to respond to climate change. The Korean government is also strengthening cooperation with ASEAN countries through the new Southern Policy. ASEAN countries have seen more than 80% increase in energy demand since 2000, and the use of fossil fuels has doubled. However, they are also continuously seeking a transition to clean energy for sustainable economic development. Although energy policies are various depending on countries, Cambodia, Indonesia, and Laos have set a goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 29% compared to BAU by 2030 and expanding the renewable energy ratio from 25% to 31%. Given the high potential of renewable energy supply and abundant resources, achieving these goals of ASEAN countries is considered to be enabled. However, in order for ASEAN countries to become a sustainable low carbon society, policies, innovative technologies, reorganization of industrial structure, and funding should be combined. I believe Korea's technology and experience can be fully beneficial. By investing about 43 trillion won by 2025 in low carbon and distributed energy, establishment of green industry innovation ecosystem, Korea has led the Green New Deal strategy, including creating 260,000 jobs, supporting promising companies, expanding green mobility, building the ground for the diffusion of RE such as PV and wind. We also prepared a strategy to promote the Green New Deal ODA this year and set a goal to expand the free ODA for dealing with climate change from 8.4% to 11.1%, the OECD DAC average. KEA is also actively exploring projects with eco-friendly elements linked to the Korean government Green New Deal ODA policy and is promoting customized cooperation projects with ASEAN countries through ASEAN+3 consultative body. KEA, as well as many government ministries and institutions in Korea, continue to cooperate with ASEAN countries for a sustainable low carbon society. I hope that the ASEAN government will be able to have their cake and eat it with both entry into a low carbon economy and economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Song-hoon. It was great to hear how much KEA is supporting different ASEAN countries and also investing so much energy into promoting the innovation. That's extremely important. And I really like how you pointed out how many jobs have been created through this process. That's something many countries should really keep in mind, especially taking into account the recovery process from the pandemic and how we can build together better through green investments and creating jobs which can also solve a number of issues with sustainable energy transition. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on that. Continuing the sort of the topic on investments and bringing in private sector on board in the process of sustainable energy transition and carbon neutrality, I want to address the next question to Mr. Matafusa Murakami regarding the companies in Japan who have pledged to support Japan's net zero policy through zero emission challenge. I would like to hear your thoughts about what do you think are the most promising and innovative sustainable energy technologies are, and is there potential for replication of these technologies in other Asian countries?
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ksenia-san, thank you for your question. As for the Japan's activity toward the net zero policy, we accelerated the activity from last year, as I mentioned in the previous presentation. Japan is showing a positive position to be a responsible partner in the field of international decarbonization. As for the zero emission challenge Ksenia-san mentioned, the METI announced 320 participating companies last October. After that, dialogue toward carbon neutral among companies, investors, and the government has launched. In December, the Green Growth Strategy was announced. And in that strategy, the 14 growth sectors are listed up and some schedule for like a roadmap was presented in each sector. Then, in addition, as a financial support, 2 trillion yen Green Innovation Fund was founded by NEDO, and discussion how to use the fund is ongoing with participating companies. Now, we are discussing about 18 fields, including the cost reduction of the onshore wind power, or the expanding the scale of the hydrogen, or how to innovate the CCU, or the developing the next generation the battery, like that. That's among such kind of the candidate of the new technologies. Honestly speaking, we are discussing the such 18 areas, but at this moment, we are not sure which technology will achieve commercialization. Frankly speaking, we will, at the autumn of this year, we will pick up some industries, and we will review each project annually and determine the continuity, whether we should continue or not. Such kind of the process will start. So as for the technologies which we successfully developed, we would like to consider using them together with ASEAN member states to support further commitment of decarbonization with realistic methodology. For example, if the hydrogen or the ammonia have a possibility, there is a possibility to be used in the existing infrastructures in each states. So it means that Japan will play a role of something the filtering the new technologies, and once it's successfully developed, we would like to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Murakami-san, for your insights on how you're bringing the private sector and company on board to drive this innovation. And of course, we all know it's a very complex process, and the future trends are still unclear for a number of technologies. So it's very important that you're already doing this work and is ready and willing to collaborate with other ASEAN countries. I think under the leadership of Japan in this area, this process would really yield great results. So thank you very much for your insights. I think we could have continued this discussion for many more hours, having such distinguished panelists and experts on board, but we are coming to the end of the allocated time. And I think we have touched upon so many important aspects of energy transition towards carbon neutrality. I think we all agree that leadership of countries is key, and the strong commitment of government to these ambitious goals, as we heard from 3 countries, but also through all other processes which are happening at the ASEAN level and in countries in the region. That's, I think, sets a very strong signal that this process is ongoing, and there is a lot of opportunities for cooperation and dialogue and support from between countries. Innovation is extremely important, but there are already so many existing solutions which we can build upon, bringing different stakeholders together, bringing private sector on board, reaching out to FIs, and making sure that investments are channeled towards sustainable energy solutions, especially during the recovery process, are key. And we heard as well about the co-benefits which the whole society can benefit from, such as creation of jobs, better air quality, better health for the population. So I think we all agree that these processes are very important, and it's great to see that countries are coming together under the common goal to achieve carbon neutrality. Thank you so much to all the panelists for sharing their thoughts and insights with us. It has been really a pleasure to moderate this session, and I'm sure we will continue our collaboration and dialogue about this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kusenia, and all experts for the great insight and for your time. And of course, thank you all for the great work you're doing. Now we have reached the end of the event, and I'd like to thank, on behalf of Sustainable Energy for All and ASEAN Center for Energy, all the special guests, speakers, and moderators who joined us today despite the busy schedule. I hope everyone who joined today have gained some valuable knowledge and insights from presentations and discussions by our distinguished speakers. It is clear that ASEAN+3 and ASEAN region will play a crucial role in the global efforts for achieving SDG 7 and Paris climate goals. The net zero declarations by ASEAN+3 countries send an important signal to ASEAN and the world that the momentum is shifting towards clean energy pathways. This is just the beginning. The ASEAN region has immense leapfrogging opportunities, and with the enabling policies and the regional cooperation framework, both ASEAN+3 and ASEAN can recover better and become the world's clean energy hub. And most importantly, it is clear that this space for knowledge exchange and dialogue should keep coming. Finally, I am pleased to share with you that SEforALL launched a global campaign called Be Bold, and we urge you to use your voice to show your commitment to the sustainable energy movement by going to bebold.seforall.org and signing up. We need as many people as possible to show their support for SDG 7. We also have a lot of exciting activities planned for the remainder of this year, including events linked to the UN High-Level Dialogue on Energy in September, and of course, COP26 in November. Finally, but not least, also the SEforALL Forum next year in Kigali, Rwanda. Also, I highly encourage all of you to visit ASEANenergy.org to find more about ASEAN Center for Energy's great work and upcoming events. We hope to see you in the next SEforALL ASEAN Center for Energy Clean Energy Dialogue series. And once again, thank you so much for joining, and stay safe.